Hello, everyone. Here we are in week 3 already in the semester. Once we finish with this, we're basically 20% of the way done with the semester already. So, fantastic progress by any measure, as far as I'm concerned. Uh, Interesting weather outside today, but here we are with enjoying one of the hidden benefits of online education, where you don't have to walk through the snow to come and see me today. Anyhow, let's follow up with last week. So we had our first real academic discussion this last week. Watch the grade book. I'll put in a few comments for you, things for you to think about as we move forward. And I think the overall comment I want you to think about in your writing is do think about what I like to call thesis-centered writing. That is, that we're really writing for an intentional thesis statement in every paragraph we write. So you begin a paragraph with what exactly you want to prove in that particular bit of writing. And then throughout the paragraph, you prove your point. And the last sentence of the paragraph should do two things. Number one, it should explain how you proved your point, and then it should move you on to the next paragraph or wrap up the post entirely if you're done at that point. And this will help you out as you write your case study paper and reminder, if you have not watched the video I posted on that, it's right below here. I'll probably throw it up again next week or maybe the week after as we get closer to when the case study itself is due. Now, here we move into interpersonal relationships this week, and it's a fascinating topic. There's a lot of things to say about it, and probably more than we can cover in a week. Well, not probably, definitely more than we can cover a week. I mean, we can spend an entire semester talking about how online and face-to-face communication deals with interpersonal relationships, how those things adapt, and how they move forward. Of course, we're focused on the online this week. And as we become more and more plugged in, and your readings will point towards this, it becomes more important for us to figure out ways to maintain, establish, and work with interpersonal relationships, to make that connection with people, to help us understand why that's important. And one of the articles even talks about how when you take the time to establish these online relationships, become more social, it's easier for you to do that in face-to-face communication with these people, which is great. But as far as the readings go this week, I would really like you to start with the Westerman reading. Uh, so it's a fairly simple book, as I think you've already figured out. It's very readable, it's very approachable, easy explanations. I think that the guys smile a lot when they're writing it. It seems that way to me, where they're almost having fun with it. There's 2 chapters to cover this week. All in all, probably about 15 pages of material is it. First one's relationship in the digital age, and then it's falling in love or in like online, which are great titles for chapters, and I think you'll find some really cool things in that. And the reason I want you to read that first is, one, it's easy reading, right? It's simple, it's really straightforward. But two, I think you can take the materials in that book and use it to frame the other 2 readings this week. So once you get done with Westerman, I think move on to the Schmidt and Cohen book. Now, these 2 guys were heavily involved with Google. They're very smart, very well-known tech guys. They get paid a lot of money to go around and talk to people about this stuff. The book, I'll be quite honest, I don't think the book's perfect. I think all too often it's painting our future lives online a little bit more dystopian than I would like. Um, if you look through the chapters themselves, I mean, the future of revolution, the future of terrorism, the future of conflict. I mean, they're really expecting sometimes the worst out of us. But there are some allusions to good things that could happen, and why we should still strive to be our best. And in particular, as you get through this first chapter, I hope that the last couple paragraphs really bring things together for you. And listen to this. This is page 31 of the Schmidt-Cohen book. Very last little bit there. We will continue to encounter challenges in the physical world, but the expansion of the virtual world and what is possible online, as well as the inclusion of 5 billion more minds, means that we will have new ways of getting information and moving resources to solve those problems, even if the solutions are imperfect. While there will remain significant differences between us, more opportunities to interact and better policy can help blur the edges. So you can hear the dystopian in there. Like, we will continue to encounter challenges. You know, will hopefully solve problems. Solutions are imperfect, but there's hope there too. And that's up to us to go out and find those hopeful things, to establish meaningful connections, and to figure out how to do it. So again, take good notes here. use those notes to augment this reading and hopefully make that a little bit easier. And then finally, I want you to move on to that article that's by McEwen and Zola. I've got this pulled up here. Davis Enola is down at Western Illinois University. He's a sharp academic. The guy publishes a lot. He really knows his stuff. And Bree McEwen is while not as published as Enola, still a great academic, good teacher too. And I want to talk a little bit about how to read an article like this, because this is much different than the first week's or the second week's article. We're in the third week now. And I think there's some different difficulties in the way it's done, because it's a research study rather than a report, right? So when I read articles like this, the first thing I do is I try and find the initial thesis statement. That's going to be somewhere in the introduction. We can scroll down through here and take a look. And don't mind all these names and everything. Like, that's not there to confuse you. So you can follow those hyperlinks out to find more information on these ideas if you're finding something really interesting. But your thesis statement is going to be embedded somewhere in the introduction, and they're going to recapitulate it probably near the end of it. So let's take a look at this last paragraph of the introduction. So experimental work on communicated mediated communication dyads and groups has shown consistently that CMC is a viable medium for forming social relationships. That sounds very thesis-y to me, right? At least they're making a point and leading into it. So experimental work on CMCs has shown that it's a viable medium, a good thing for forming social relationships. And that's good, right? Because we're looking at moving more and more things online, like we're doing right now in our class. The next sentence goes on. Communicators interacting over CMC experience social aspects of communication, such as immediacy, affinity, and similarity or homophilia. And this is just connections between people. Immediacy is when you see an instructor, do you think that they have your best interest in mind? Do they seem kind and caring? It's one of the reasons to do the video lectures, because instead of being this ethereal, spectral voice in print, you get to see a little bit of me and perhaps start to establish that maybe I'm not a robot, or that there's something I care about, and maybe there's something I want to share with you. So these things, the CMCs, can lead to these particular ideals. Indeed, over time, the individuals in the CMC groups reported more social orientation as opposed to task orientation than participants who were communicating in face-to-face situations. So what they found in a longitudinal study, which means over time, is that people that are doing the same tasks online together, as opposed to physically in a room face-to-face together, these online people ended up sharing more social interactions. They're talking about what's happening with their kids, what they do in their free time, what they're interested in. And it could be that it's because of the online nature, like you want to find a connection to people. It could just be coincidence. That's up to you to go through and read and find out about that. And they give you in the next section the literature review, theoretical perspectives that they look at, these different models, different theories that they've used to examine data. Just highlight over these things. I would take a couple of notes on them, stuff that might pop up in your quiz, hint, hint. But there's some interesting things in there too that may help you actually work with your case study paper. So do look at them closely. Let's move down through there into the next section. Here's where you don't have to pay as close attention to the reading. Where they're talking about the method, this is how they set up their experiment. They're gathering participants, how they delivered their survey or set up their experiment, different outcomes that they were hoping for. I mean, it gets kind of dense and thick. What happens later on in the paper, what becomes really important for us. Now, our results is important right here. It tells us what they learned from the study themselves. But even more important than the results, if we go down here, is the discussion section. And this, to me, is the most important part of most research papers, because this takes the theory and the results, bunches everything together, and tells us what we can learn from it. And that's what we're really looking for. So again, like if you've got some good notes from the Westerman book here, you can take that and apply it right into what's happening in the discussion section of this paper. And you're going to have some good stuff to bring into our weekly discussion that'll be due this Wednesday. To move down through here, there's a limitation section that you don't have to worry too much about either. It just says the struggles that they had creating the survey, why it might not be as trustworthy as they'd like, but it's still something we can go to. And the conclusion again wraps things up. And you can look to make sure that you have the right thesis statement in the introduction by looking at the conclusion. So if we go down here and we take a look at the paragraph, maybe even the last line is what we're looking for. So given the amount of time communication online was found to drive relational processes, it may be prudent that if individuals intend to meet online acquaintances face to face, they do so before the relationship reaches the hyperpersonal stage. So what this means is, if you're going to meet people on, if you're working with people online, you're going to meet them in person. You should get to know them because you're going to have a stronger social relationship with them. And that doesn't sound as thesisy as we'd want. So let's go back through this paragraph just a little bit more and see what happens here. Starting at the top of it, the effects explored within the study reflect an attempt at understanding how the proposed predications of major theoretical perspectives on CMC, particularly online to offline relationships, would hold up under real world circumstances. So this is just a summary of what they wanted to test, sort of a research question. These data are, of course, messier than experimental data, but may represent greater ecological validity. And that's not a sentence you need to be really concerned with. It's just saying that we can trust the data. In general, this study supports the idea that meeting an individual who one has known online face to face may help to improve the relationship in terms of closeness and reward value. However, this study also suggests that if individuals have formed hyperpersonal relationships, they may find a face-to-face meeting to be detrimental. So this is some really interesting, dense stuff, and it's sort of relating back to the thesis. It's not the exact same thing they started with, but it's how the experiment sort of changed their minds. So go back, read carefully what it means to have a hyperpersonal relationship and how this thing may be good or bad. And that's something you can take into our discussion this week. So I've got this posted up for you already. We've got 2 tasks this week. I'm going to have 1 writing post, 1 video post. I would like you to put them into the same post so that it's easy for our facilitators to navigate them. The writing post follows up the video post. It'll be super simple, very self-explanatory, but do yourselves a favor and read the instructions very carefully. Make sure everything's there. After you've made your initial post on Wednesday, Renee, Paige, and Adam K are going to come in. They're going to be our facilitators this week. They're going to go through. They're going to post a bunch of stuff up. Please take time to respond to them. And again, remember, Sunday is Valentine's Day, so get your responses in early if you have plans, or get them in early if you have plans to not have plans, etc. Anyways, if you need anything, please ask for a Skype appointment. Send me an email. I'm happy to do those things. Otherwise, I will see you on the discussion forums later this week.